I've been rummaging through my mystery box of your miniatures again, and today's pull, well, it kind of challenged my conceptions about Games Workshop. It's no secret that I don't have much to do with G-dubs these days, and whilst I'll be the first to admit that that started off as kind of a grumpy protest sort of thing, I've kind of chilled out over the years now, and that's sort of simmered down to just really, well, disinterest. Because the thing is, in my eyes at least, Games Workshop's miniature design these days is kind of anti-expressive and, dare I say, even maybe anti-art. And before you get upset and go down in the comments and tell me how wrong I am, just bear with me a second, because I want to explain. Because the thing is, even though as an artist I don't like it, as a business person I do get it. Games Workshop are designing miniatures to specifically showcase their IPs. They're designing miniatures to get people playing their games and buying their products. And, well, really none of that asks them to focus on the artistic or the creative side. That's not really what they're in it for. And to be honest, if hobbyists that are into that side of things have to work a little bit harder, such as converting monopose miniatures for example, then, well, that's just part of the hobby as GW sees it. And that's fine. I can remember an anecdote from a Golden Demon painter, and I think it was probably Richard Gray, who said that he often actually scrapes the detail off of his miniatures with a craft knife in order to make them look simpler and therefore give him more space to be expressive. But then I opened this from my mystery box. Also, while we're on the subject, if you want to know more about the mystery box and follow along as it evolves over time, then have a look at the video that's going to be somewhere up there, and that'll sort of introduce you to it. But yeah, this is a recent Games Workshop sculpt. Really quite recent, actually. And it's from a game that Games Workshop still is fully supporting and is actively releasing for. And well, it's kind of not got any of that excessive texture and greeblies and all those things that kind of make modern GW miniatures often just a bit of a pain. Because the thing with that stuff is it is a bit deterministic. There's sort of only one way to paint certain things if they're laid out for you on the sculpt. But, well, with this little Inquisitor agent miniature, this is from Kill Team by the way, I can kind of, I think, make something that's going to be interesting and send this back to the client looking really good. So fingers crossed this simpler sculpt is going to illustrate my point. So to start off with, I want to remove the zenithal from most of the areas of this. I don't really like working with a zenithal, and a lot of these areas I kind of will just be able to make look better if they're straight over black anyway. So I'm just going in and doing that. And once that's done, I get to focus in on the main point of this miniature, which is quite clearly those robes. GW has blessed us with a big blank area here. So I'm going to do something really cool that starts with laying out this wet blend, starting first of all just with some simple bands of colour next to each other to lay out roughly where the blend will live. Once those are in, I can blend those colours to a smooth transition, just working back and forth a little bit and touching up here and there where needs be. Now, clearly we can see that if this robe was covered in loads of sculpted detail or had tons of greeblies hanging over it, then, well, this would be a bit more difficult, a lot more difficult, probably kind of hair-pullingly frustrating. But it isn't. So I don't actually need this blend to be massively clean for what I want to do, so I'm going to leave it here now and move on to the next part, which is to freehand some flames. Now, look, you might think that this is quite a tricky thing to do. I happen to just love painting this way. I like adding little bits of freehand to my miniatures. I find it really fun, I find it really personalizing, but I get that freehanding is a bit daunting for some people, and that's why we have actually got a lesson for that. Yes, over on our Patreon, we have now launched our monthly tutorials. They are available through Patreon or Ko-fi, and they are exclusive to all members who join at the pink tier and above. We cover all sorts of subjects, but one of the ones that I released most recently was improving your stability, your control, and your lining skills. All the things that you need to be able to lay down some good freehand. So yeah, if stuff like this is a stumbling block for you and you want to unlock those skills to be a more expressive, more creative painter, head over to our Patreon or our Ko-fi, both of which are linked in the description below. Sign up at the pink tier or higher, and you will instantly gain access to all those tutorials, including this one on lining, stability, and control. However, heading back to our model now, you can see that with my little freehand pattern blocked in, that simple blend that was underneath turns into a really cool looking flame pattern. And yes, for those of you with a keen eye, I did end up basically blacking out the entire model. I don't know why I started covering bits of the Zenithal at the start. Should have just covered the whole thing, really. But now that those robes are black, I'm going to start highlighting them up, and I'm actually going to go with some cool tones to create a really strong contrast with those nice warm flames. To achieve this, I'm just going to take a turquoise and slowly start mixing it into black, working up a few stages of stipply kind of simple highlights. When I get towards the end of those highlights, I'll start just adding a bit of white into that mix for the last couple of little dotty bits, and that's just going to give us some nice bright top end. And now I have a really nice, eye-catching focal point for this miniature, and it wasn't really that hard. But now that I have that in place, everything else around it I can kind of just chill out on, paint really straightforwardly, not have to do anything super crazy because I've got that really cool part to draw the eye. And this is a principle that we actually use quite commonly in miniature painting, just in different ways. I mean, we've all heard the sage advice, focus on faces and bases, because that will give people something to look at and elevate your whole model, meaning that it looks great even if everything else is pretty simple. This is exactly the same trick, we've just chosen a different focal point for the model. So as I progress through our miniature here, I am making a conscious choice to choose fairly straightforward colours, nothing else that's too standouty for the most part. And that's because I am trying to be very aware of not drawing people's attention away from that focal point that we spent all that time trying to draw people's attention to. Even when it comes to the metallics, I generally, as many of you know, tend to favour non-metallic metal, especially if I'm painting a single mini. But here I think just sticking with TMM is actually what this model needs to not create something too flashy and distracting. And before I knew it, a couple of hours in and I was at this point, starting to just add the last couple of finishing touches to the miniature. Thanks to this single focal point approach, the amount of time this had taken me, it was looking really quite nice. I mean, I reckon at this kind of work rate, I could have probably finished this whole kill team within a day, and they would have looked way above tabletop standard. And honestly, that's why I really appreciate it when sculptors just trust me as the artist to do the expressive stuff and just sit back a little bit on all that over intricacy. This doesn't mean that a miniature can't be detailed, it just means don't throw every single accessory and texture at it that's possible, because that's what eats into my space to play and have fun. As I look at this finished piece, I can't help but wish that Games Workshop would just do this more often. Let me, the painter, choose how detailed something needs to be. Make the accessories optional, not built into the sculpt. Create open spaces in the miniature where the sculpt can breathe a little and the artist can take control. And honestly, if they did this more, I think this would really help people avoid burnout and stay engaged with the hobby more. Because let's face it, most of you out there are painting Games Workshop models more than anything else. If those models represented something more relaxing and didn't quite seem so daunting when you have so many of them to paint, you'd probably be having more fun with your hobby. Even if you're already having lots of fun, it can always be better. This miniature was honestly a huge surprise to me. I thought that these more relaxed sculpts were kind of a thing of the past outside of rank and file clone troops. So to see one member of a 5-person kill team squad, or however big it is, that is essentially an individual miniature get this kind of treatment is really refreshing for me and reinstills a little bit of my faith. Is it going to get me playing Games Workshop games again? Probably not, but it does remind me that I need to be checking in every now and again on what they're releasing, because they probably do still have some stuff I want to paint. And to be completely honest with you, I'd be quite happy to paint a kill team, couple of kill teams maybe, if they were these kind of models, because it would at least be nice and relaxing. So I really hope you enjoyed this one, because I really did. Thanks to Craig for sending in the miniature for the mystery box. Really good pick. And I'll see you in the next one, folks. Thanks, and bye for now.